Welcome back, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast, episode 32.
32. What happens?
What happens now? Adulthood is crashing in on us. What do we do? Welcome, everyone. My name is Nabahi. I am the host, one of the hosts.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sir Gator Productions, and I'm the other host, I think.
Yes, and we're here today. It's daylight savings time, so right now I'm running off of coffee, water, and failure. I'm very tired right now, but we're here. We're ready to record. In the interest of daylight savings time, you would think it wouldn't affect a show like this, but it will. The show's actually going to be an hour shorter than it normally is. So I'm going to jump right to my score. I give it a 5 out of 5.
Nice. I give it a 20 out of 10.
And that's it. That's the rest of our show. Have a good one.
Good day, good night, mates.
No, I'm kidding. It's daylight savings day. We're here. If I sound out of it at all at some point, I got my coffee right here, so definitely just going to try to power through this, but I am very, very tired. With it being a week since arguably the biggest night in movies of the year, I'd figure let's discuss some of the winners, some of the losers, some of the picks, the speeches, and stuff like that. Overall, I felt like the Oscars this year was actually really good for me personally. I felt like it was super entertaining. I know I had mentioned going into it that obviously I'm a big Conan O'Brien fan, so for me that does play a little bit of bias into this. However, just the way he is in which he presents stuff is something that just I feel can never really be matched. He does super funny jokes, but he's not afraid to get heartfelt at times. There was a time there in his opening monologue where he just started talking about this night is for the people behind the lens of movies too. I just wasn't expecting that. I was like, wow, that's a classy thing to do, and I'm glad that he went there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could tell he had like a lot of respect for the Oscars and for filmmaking in general, and that was like a big surprise and everything too. Because for me, I was kind of a little bit somewhat familiar with Conan from just like his talk show from back in the day and just like some of his interviews. So I was kind of curious to see how it would be him hosting and everything, but I really loved his hosting a lot. And I loved a lot of the bits that he would go into. I loved the Dune sandworm bit. I thought that was awesome. And I really loved the bit where he brought on like the firefighters to come and do like a kind of roast thing.
That was so good.
But I really loved it a lot. I was actually kind of surprised how much I really liked the Oscars, because for the past few years, I haven't really enjoyed it all that much. I've just kind of been like, the films they've been picking have been all right, aside from Everything Everywhere. Jimmy Kimmel's just never been that interesting of a host to me. So that kind of also just strayed me away from like watching the Oscars and everything. So it felt like a nice, like a reset kind of button for the Oscars and everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. It felt a lot more concise, despite it going over time as always.
I know it's 4 hours, but it flew by a lot more this time. And I think that helped with like Conan kind of hosting, and then also just hearing some of like the picks and everything, you know, because I was kind of curious, like what's going to win, you know.
Breath of fresh air for me. I'm very excited. I hope Conan O'Brien does return to host again. I just feel like he would probably be even more in his craft than he was now. But he definitely went into a few places that I just was not expecting, and I felt like it came off very genuine.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it was really great. Some of the winners that I wanted to mention, especially some of the ones that deeply surprised me. I have a few people in my circle right now who have been recommending Flow for a while.
Yeah, that's on my watch list. I haven't seen it yet, but after seeing it won, it was a big surprise and everything. It just
came out of nowhere and just stole it, and I was like, wow, like not stole it, but obviously deserved it maybe a little bit more than the other movies. But
sure.
I wasn't expecting that. Like that, someone had mentioned that this is obviously the third time an outside foreign studio wins for best animated feature.
The other two being Ghibli, right?
The first time being non-Ghibli, and I was like, holy crap, like that just blew my mind. So I need to check out this movie, but it was really cool, like seeing kind of the lesser known films winning these awards and stuff. That's
great and everything. Yeah. And that was a great category also, especially because you had the Wallace and Gromit one, which was amazing. The Wild Robot was obviously my pick, and that was fantastic too. I actually was thinking it was probably going to be like the Pixar pick, because I know they always pick like a Pixar movie usually every like year, but it was kind of nice to see like a different film winning for a nice change of pace.
The acting categories seemed like the favorites who were going to win. I guess the only one that really not surprised me, but I was kind of not expecting was Adrian Brody winning. I really honestly was like, I thought Timothée Chalamet was going to win, just with how everyone was like
hyping it up and everything.
Hyping it up, and it just it came out a lot later, so I felt like the recency bias might push him to the top. So I was surprised to see that Adrian Brody won. I will say his speech,
it was like the longest speech, I guess, now.
So unfocused. I mean, granted, I know I'm unfocused in a lot of shit that I talk about. So maybe if I were to ever be on stage accepting some big award, I might lose focus. But man, he went on for a long time. It was like a total of like 6 minutes. And not only that, like I'm not just judging him in general, but to see him go on for 6 minutes, and then some of these other people are getting played off stage after like 30 seconds and stuff. It was like,
that's disappointing. I wish they would just stop doing that.
And he didn't really say anything of much substance. He just sounded like he was going in circles, trying to sound profound, trying to sound like this was a new start for him. Because obviously he had won the award, pretty much 20 years ago. And here he is, kind of new head on his shoulders. How is he going to go about this? And I really would have liked, he kind of mentioned taking it for granted when he first won. And he never thought he'd be back on that stage. And I wish he just stuck to that. But then he just kind of kept rambling. And I was like, oh, this is not a good look.
Yeah.
And definitely at the end of the whole award show, like that was something that I just saw the most, was how long he went on for. And I totally agree in that sentiment. It really was just like, they need to play him off.
I hope that's one thing though in the future that they fix, is just giving other people that aren't like actors or like the big names like a chance to like actually give a speech, because it happened a couple of times, especially in like the sound design and VFX categories, where it was just like, they right when they were getting to like the really good parts about their speech and everything and thanking everyone, the music just cues up. And I don't know, that's something that's always kind of annoyed me with the Oscars. So that was one thing that I do think they can improve on for sure in the future. But
because it is all about, like Conan said, like respecting not just people in front of the lens, but now you have these awards for everyone else putting in the effort: editors, sound mixers, sound designers, production designers, and everything. And to just give them such a short amount of time is just like, come on, like this is probably one of the few times you're ever going to put a face to the name,
Right.
So you feel like it should be a little bit more indulging of them, especially because they work so hard. Like seeing everyone who won, like you could just see it in some of the clips they would play. Like one of the ones, obviously, I had been mentioning ever since I saw it, was the production designer of Wicked. You see it on screen every time. The sets, they look amazing. The costumes, all that. I was just like, it's kind of unmatched, like, and obviously he spoke pretty concisely in a short amount of time, but it's like, this is a big moment. It shouldn't be shortened in any way, but I get it. They have to run through a whole list of awards and things like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of in two worlds at this point. Wallied, I know, Best Actress. How did you feel about that award?
It's a shock. I thought they were going to give it to Demi Moore, because I know people were hyping it up for a while and everything. And I know Mikey Madison is like an up and coming actress and everything. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah.
It puts a very big smile on my face. I'm glad Mikey Madison got it. She gave again, I've said it in the past couple of episodes and everything. She gives such an incredible performance in it. Her range in that film is insane. You know, the way she can go from these quiet moments to these loud in your face moments. It's just like, I don't know how she does it. And I'm excited to see where she goes next after this, because I feel like, especially in the future, there's a bright future ahead of her, you know, and I am just super grateful that she won for it.
It was definitely one that I wasn't expecting. I honestly was hearing a lot about Demi Moore.
I still need to see it too.
I need to see it.
I'm sure she's great in it, but it does make me happy to see Mikey Madison winning.
It was a big moment, especially for someone who obviously a couple of years ago was kind of just finding their footing.
Right.
And to be given such a main big role like this was obviously a very good choice by the casting director. Like, there was something that they saw shine through everyone else's performances, you know, like it's those lightning in a bottle situations where the perfect actress, the perfect director, writers, everyone just came together at that right moment, and they were able to shine above everyone else, which is really cool. One of the ones I wanted to mention, obviously, Wallied's been hyping up Sean Baker. He won quite a few awards that night.
I know, it was a big surprise. I was not expecting Anora to sweep like all of them, and I just was shocked every time. I was like, what? Are you serious?
He went up for a few awards, but one of the ones I definitely just wanted to shine light on was when he won Best Director. His whole speech was great. I just wanted to read some of it because the moment he was mentioning all this, I just shared so much of his sentiment of what he was saying that I was just very grateful that someone like him winning this award took the time to mention this. He said, watching a film in the theater with an audience is an experience. We can laugh together, cry together, scream and fright together, perhaps sit in devastated silence together. And in a time in the world in which the world can feel very divided, this is more important than ever. It's a communal experience you simply don't get at home. This is my battle cry. Filmmakers, keep making films for the big screen. I know I will. Distributors, please focus first and foremost on the theatrical releases of your films. Neon did that for me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And he says, parents, introduce your children to feature films in movie theaters, and you'll be molding the next generation of movie lovers and filmmakers. And for all of us, when we can, please watch movies in the theater. And let's keep the great tradition of the movie-going experience alive and well. This is something that I've definitely been saying on this podcast ever since we started. For me, being in the theater with everyone is just like unlike anything else. You know, when you're in the theater, you have that collective experience that you just can't get anywhere else. Obviously, you can get a bunch of friends and sit in front of a TV. You can kind of mimic it, but it's different being in a room with everyone, people you don't know, yet you're sharing in those moments together of happiness, being afraid, being angry, sadness. You feel all these things with people you've never met, and that is such a special thing. And to hear him say that and obviously break that down into how important it is. And like he said, you could be molding the next generation of filmmakers because you took them to go see this certain movie. You know, it's like how many times you watch directors, artists, actors, they mention that important movie that they saw at a specific time. And I just don't think that can really be replicated when you're at home. So it was really great to see that speech, and I just totally was like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously he went up there 3 times. So by the 3rd time, he was probably able to talk about something, you know, and I was happy for that. Each time he went up, it was just, you could just tell he was in shock, and he was just going to make the most of that moment. You know?
Yeah, he's definitely like the definition of like a true indie filmmaker for sure. Because he's been making movies. I didn't even know this. He's been making movies for like 20, almost 30 years now, you know, and to kind of see him finally gain that success and everything now is just like, it's just great. You know, it's awesome to kind of see him evolve and grow and everything. And especially too, I did have a chance to see Anora in theaters, and it was just like probably one of the best theater experiences I had, honestly. It was kind of cool, and I never expected I'd get to see a movie in theaters like that. So I do thank Neon and Sean Baker for actually getting the chance to have it play in theaters everywhere.
He's a super talented guy, but to see him win for best editing, best writing, best directing, and then eventually best picture was just like, when he was up there for best editing, I was like, holy shit, this guy did everything for this movie.
And the editing, and that's the thing too, I actually wanted to talk about, is the editing is fantastic in it. Yeah. It's not showy in any way. You know, there's not like some crazy editing, cutting every 2 seconds type of thing. It's very well edited. And I think like the pacing of the film, you know, because that's a big part of editing that I don't think people realize, is like pacing plays such a big part in that film. And the fact it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes and not a single second feels wasted is like such an accomplishment in of itself. And that's one thing that I've always been fascinated about with Sean Baker, is the fact that he does edit all of his movies. You know, it is such a, I feel like for me, those are like some of the best filmmakers, is that when they can use editing to their advantage to make a very compelling story and, you know, be able to get their points and everything across.
It was quite the sweep. And I was extremely happy for everyone who won. I didn't know how some of these awards were going to go. Obviously, there were a few you could definitely kind of pinpoint right away on which ones were the favorites. But it was really cool. It was a really great night. A lot of great speeches, a lot of kind of meh speeches.
Zoe Saldana.
Obviously, Adrian Brody, and then that lady who won for
El Mall.
Yeah, I was like,
god-awful song.
Stop. But yeah, we won't get into that.
Okay.
If you guys haven't seen the Oscars, definitely check out some of these speeches like we mentioned.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And I feel like the Oscars is kind of being reshaped. Obviously, I know a lot of the Academy members could be changing in the near future, you know, new writers, new directors coming in, which kind of changes the landscape for how we view certain movies. And I feel like over the past 5 years, we've been seeing a lot of proof of that with movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, Parasite, now Anora. A lot of these films that can be very challenging to normal going audiences.
Yeah, and it's a big surprise to see them win these awards, because I would have never guessed. I honestly thought it was probably going to be like Wicked or The Brutalist, honestly, or that Amelia Perez. I was like, yeah, I'll probably sweep all the Oscars. That was my prediction, at least. And so it was just, it made me happy. I was like, it's nice. It's nice to see a movie that I actually really love and enjoy, like actually getting all this recognition and praise.
Yeah. And now we start the race for next year's Oscars.
Thank God. No more Amelia Perez. We don't ever have to talk about it ever again.
All right, guys. We are talking about one of my personal favorite movies of all time. When recommending this movie, I was just... obviously, I was struggling to find a pick, but this is one that blew my mind when I saw it. And that's not an understatement at all. I remember leaving the theater and just being like, wow, that was really fucking good. And I was not super excited to see it. This did come out at a time when I was halfway into anime, but I wasn't fully there yet. You know, besides this movie, I'd seen a few Ghibli films, and I think that was it at the time. This movie really blew my mind, because not only was it so great, but it was also like a modern release, you know, because a lot of the anime movies people would talk about were like older movies, you know, like Akira, Ghibli films, you know. So this was quite the experience seeing this. This movie is called Your Name, and it's directed by Makato Shinkai, and it came out for a small release in 2016. It was very brief in US theaters and stuff. I'm very fortunate I got the chance to go see it, and I remember, like always, my siblings wanted to go, and I was kind of reluctant. And I ended up going, and I'm forever grateful that I went. So if you guys ever get those feelings about movies to where you're like, I don't know, I don't really want to go, you know, just go. All right. You really could be missing out on such a great movie. And obviously with a movie like this, seeing it in theaters with the sound, the music, the big picture, it was amazing. So yeah.
Nice.
Wallied, first time you saw Your Name, can you recollect that moment?
Yeah, so I actually first saw it in 2022, and I actually bought it blindly at a store because the only other film I had seen from that filmmaker was Weathering with You, which I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious to see what else this guy had made. And so I saw Your Name at a store, and I was like, I thought the poster looked really cool and everything. And so I bought it, and I went home and I saw it, and I remember just being blown away by it the first time I saw it. I wasn't expecting the plot to go in the direction that it was going because I really wasn't sure like what the movie was about or anything. And so it was a big surprise to kind of find out like, oh, it's like a body swap type of movie in the first half. And then the second half, it's like this crazy, like high concept, like Christopher Nolan type movie. And so it was great to kind of see that like different contrast throughout. And it just left me on like the edge of my seat. I was like, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen next, you know? And I just got so invested in everything I was watching. And I had only seen it once, and it was just a film I thought about kind of nonstop after watching it. And so, yeah, so that was, I guess, kind of my first experience with the film. And so I guess rewatching it, it was like, wow, this film is even better than I remember. And I think, honestly, it gets better, I think, as you rewatch it, honestly, because I saw it once with this subbed version and once with like the dubbed version. And I would actually even say like the dubbed version of this is actually on par with the subbed version, surprisingly.
Yeah. One things I want to mention, if you haven't seen this movie, please make time for it. I know I mentioned it in the last episode, but this is kind of a once in a lifetime kind of story experience. There are other movies like it, obviously, but the way this plays out, you get along for the ride in honestly a short amount of time. I think it clocks in at like an hour 45.
Yeah, it's surprising.
You really can't get better than this. So I've said it. If you haven't seen it, I'm envious of that. And I wish I could watch this movie again for the first time. So please just go out, watch it, and enjoy it. Just because we'll be talking about spoilers and everything. So yeah, it's great. I can't recommend it enough. And if it's not streaming anywhere, again, just buy it. Just rent it. Buy it. Whatever you need to do, watch this movie.
I mean, that's how I did it. I just bought it blindly. So.
Yeah. The way, like Wallied was mentioning, the way this story kind of plays out is just, I wasn't expecting it. I say that a lot in movies, but this is something that I was not expecting, obviously from the poster and everything. Does kind of look like a love story, and it goes in places that you're just like, wait, what? And you find out information, and the way it's presented to you is just very to the point and it has emotion behind it. Obviously, with the beginning, you're kind of seeing these two people and you're not really sure how this kind of connects. And I love the way the story kind of unfolds to where Wallied, like Wallied said, these two are basically switching lives, you know? And I remember when I first saw that, obviously it was just like, whoa, what the heck? How is this working, you know? And it has like that kind of supernatural element to it. But it's very much just kind of like a teenage kind of drama, you know?
Yeah.
And blending those two together is something that I would definitely be afraid to do. But it really, really works. Straight off the bat, I just want to mention the animation in this is incredible. Insane. It is absolutely crazy. The lighting looks great in pretty much every scene. The attention to detail is just, man, I remember watching in the theaters, blowing my mind. Some of the shots are just totally just like a painting. Like there's at least like 30 shots in this movie that if I could get like giant posters of and just put them on the wall, I would love that. I'd just put them in this whole room and just stare at them nonstop because the animation is incredible. The camera work is great. There's something that I love in this movie. It's very small. It's not big or anything, but there's a lot of like these small placed steady shots of just simple stuff, like literally just a doorway opening or a close up like of a fire igniting underneath like a pot. Just those small shots just really adds so much attention to detail that you just honestly sometimes can forget that you're watching an animated movie.
Yeah.
And seeing those shots, are like when I was rewatching it, and I appreciate so much that they're there, because in a lot of animated movies, you know, they can kind of get a little scared of the details. You know, they can kind of like, that's not really the most important thing, but it really adds to this movie. There's a handful of shots like that, and I just really love them. I don't know, Wallied, the animation, what were you thinking with this movie?
I'm just shocked, you know. I didn't think animation could get more insane than Ghibli, but like, wow, it's insane. Like, one of my favorite things about this movie is just a lot of like, it's so small and it's just mostly like kind of establishing shots, but I just love the establishing shots of like, you know, like the town or like, or even just like the skyline of like Tokyo and everything. Yeah. It's so beautiful to look at, you know, and it's just like, but it doesn't feel like it's just like a test animation or anything. It plays such a vital role and purpose to like what you're watching and everything. And just the designs of like the characters too looks great. I love just how each of them look unique in their own different ways. And I love how much of the colors pop out too, especially the scenes where you do see like the meteor and all that. It's just like, it's like looking at fireworks.
One of the things, this movie makes great use of 3D animation. It blends the two very, very well together. Yeah. There's like, again, that's stuff that I kind of pinpoint in other animations of like, they kind of cheap their way around this or whatever. In this movie, I don't think that at all. And another thing is the use of 3D animation, but again, just the blending of the two just works so well together. I really can't be in more awe of this movie and when they have it. And then obviously some of these shots are just like, again, they feel like paintings, stuff that I take for granted in most other movies. Like, I'm not really a big time-lapse guy, but for some reason in this movie, when they have time-lapses of the cityscape and everything, I'm just like, what the heck?
Or the shot with like the time-lapse with like the lights, the traffic lights and everything. It's really awesome.
I'm like, holy crap. But that's just on an animation standpoint. This movie's almost 10 years old, and I swear the animation just holds up so well. And I like the blending of the two, obviously. The characters are not super realistic, but a lot of the backdrops and everything are. But it just makes this nice meld of everything. And obviously, when there's like the meteor shower and everything, man, you just feel like you're watching this bigger than life moment play out in front of you. So obviously, this story is about these two people who are switching bodies. Basically, in the beginning, it's not entirely kind of said. It's more like just kind of hinted at. I love that reveal.
It's a great
of like
mystery intrigue.
Like
and
her friends and family are like, yeah, you were acting weird yesterday. You know, what was going on? You didn't even know where your classroom was, you know, things like that. And I was just like, wait, what's going on? And just like that slow kind of reveal of that was really great. And I love the back and forth between the friends. They say a lot. There's a lot of humor in this that's really funny.
The cafe.
Yeah. And just that reveal, again, it's like in the first 10 minutes when they reveal that these two are switching lives. But then there's a lot of visual cues, like with the stuff on their phone, the calendars, the messages.
There's a lot of awesome foreshadowing. There's like a point where she says at the beginning, like, I want to be reincarnated into like a handsome Tokyo boy.
Oh, that's so good. I wrote that down too. And then her sister's like, what a jackass or whatever. That's so funny. But again, that reveal is just something that really took me off guard and kind of was like, wow, this is the story I'm in for. A lot of great characters. The side characters are really great in this movie. They provide a lot of humor to these situations. Obviously, you have a guy going into a girl's body. He's going to be acting weird, and he's not really going to be doing stuff that a lot of, you know, obviously a girl would. Like, they'd be like, your hair was messy yesterday. You sounded like you didn't care. You were just kind of going around with no regard for anything.
You were touching your... Yeah. I
love that little montage of that back and forth of them like kind of going back and forth at each other. Like there's a part where they figured out that they've been switching lives. So now they start writing like guidelines, messages to each other. And Taki, he's the main character, one of the main characters. He's like, basically quit buying food. Like, you're buying food so much.
It's going in your body.
Yeah, it's going in your body. And then Mitsuha is like, quit working so much. And then he responds, I have to, because you're spending all of my money. There's just a lot of like unique moments and unique humor situations that work so well, especially in that montage of just like, we're switching roles, but we need to do the best for each other's lives, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some take it in different directions. Obviously Mitsuha will like set him up on a date and everything, really just kind of like goes for that extra effort, you know, which is really cool.
I was surprised too with the romance also in the film. It never feels forced or anything, and it doesn't even really feel like a romance, but rather they just feel like more like friends, you know, especially with Taki's coworker and everything. I love that whole sequence of like where they're going on like the date and everything. I really love that a lot, you know, and I feel like it plays into their chemistry really well.
Yeah. Like Wallied said, the romance isn't entirely right in your face. Obviously, when they're switching lives and stuff, they don't really hint at too much.
There's a bit of like a few gay undertones I kind of noticed this time around.
A bit towards the kind of later half, not the later half, but a bit towards the end of like the first 20, 25 minutes, do they start to hint at Mitsuha and Taki might be having these feelings for each other, where obviously they've been switching lives. They're living each other's lives. It's such an interesting way to like get to know someone, you know, obviously in romance stories and things like that. That's usually kind of like the big moments where they meet for the first time, you know, but this spins it on its head of like, they're meeting each other, but it's in a totally different way. You know?
Well, and I love too in the second half also of like where they actually did have a connection like that first time, like on the train and everything. And she was trying to like tell him his name and everything like that, you know. I almost saw that as like, you know, like you meet people in like the most unexpected of places. That's how I saw that, at least with that kind of romantic angle of like the movie.
This story plays out obviously with the switching roles and everything. I was like, okay, this is probably kind of the full scope of the movie, and I was really enjoying it at the time. That first half, whatever you want to call it, had me, and it had me just like, all right, this is great. I'm loving this. I really don't know why, but I'm invested, you know. It was just a combination of everything, the animation, the voice acting, and it had those small moments of just like, this just feels like I'm watching life, you know. I know Wallied mentioned the date sequence where he basically goes on a date with his boss, and Mitsuha basically ends up setting it up. There's a great moment that I love so much where she is getting ready, and it's kind of like an overlaying of vocals. She's telling Taki, like, you better go on this date, you better give it your all, you know, I set it up, I did all this stuff. And there's such a small moment of her looking in the mirror, and she's like crying, and she asks her, she kind of is like, why am I crying, you know? And that was such a great moment of like, she's literally wishes she could be on that date right now, you know?
Yeah.
And it was sad. It was like, wow, like that's kind of heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah.
And it's such a brief moment, and it goes over it right away.
I felt like how I took that scene, at least, was like, I felt like maybe she wasn't like comfortable with herself, you know, and that she felt like this different body and everything. I see it as like, she feels like she could be more herself than she can with like her friends and with her family and everything, you know. And I was kind of surprised that the film portrays identity in that way. It was a very big surprise for sure. You could see like throughout the film, they get more comfortable doing the body swap thing and everything like that.
After that sequence, they go on this date. Taki, Miss Okudera, it's very laid back, and for me this is such an important moment. The score just takes you. It's obviously the whole score is by Radwimps, and at this part in particular, this song had the most profound effect on me. It's so small scale. It's literally these two going to different places, and there's just this piano playing. And I don't know what it is, but ever since I heard that piano, I was like, holy crap. Like, I thought it was amazing. And I've listened to this song so much. This song is literally the reason why I wanted to start playing the piano. Wow. This is such a big moment for me because I was always scared of the piano. I was like, I don't want to play it. It seems too hard. I remember trying to learn it as a kid and I just couldn't get it. But for some reason with this song, I was like, no, like that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And I want to learn it no matter what. And I just can't get enough of this song. It's one of my like favorite, just kind of stripped back pieces of music I've heard in a movie. It's very simple, very brief, but seeing it with the images and everything on screen, them going on this date is amazing. I've gone on to obviously different YouTube videos of the music and everything, and seeing this song, one of my favorite comments I've ever read on YouTube was someone reacting to the song, and they described it as like, when I first heard this, I realized something in my life was missing. And I was like, wow, that is such a great way to describe this song. When you hear it, it's like, you didn't even know you could feel this emotion. I might be hyping it up too much, but this song in particular, just, man, it just blew me away. And it comes up a few other times in the movies and obviously reincorporated to basically the theme of Mitsuha, but it's so amazing. This score is just 10 out of 10. Like I really was blown away by this music in this movie. Wallied, music wise, it's Radwimps, so they're pretty big. One of the biggest bands in Japan, obviously.
Okay.
What were you thinking with a lot of the music in this movie?
I really loved a lot of the compositions in it. One of my favorite, maybe my favorite in the film, was the scene where she's discovering Tokyo for like the first time. I don't know what it is, but that, when those pianos come in, my God, yeah. It's just like, it's like a whole feeling of like being in a new city for like the first time, or being in like a new environment. And it's just like that whole scene, and that score, especially in that scene, like I think captures that feeling so perfectly. I love a lot of the music in this film. It's like, wow, even just some of the background stuff, like you hear like the pianos and like the scenes where she's like in the countryside and everything. It just gives off that vibe so well. You know, it's really comforting, surprisingly. And even when it gets more intense in the second half, it's like, wow, like it really does make you it makes you feel like you're there with the characters, which I really love. And the score is just like, how do you even come up with a score like that? You know, that's what I'm still like trying to wrap my head around, even like my third time seeing it. I'm like, how is this a real score? But yeah, I love the score in this film. This has to be one of my favorite scores in any movie, I think, honestly. It's just like, it plays such a vital, I feel like the score is like a character in of itself. It plays such a vital role in the film and everything.
It translates a lot of the emotions and things that you feel on screen. I do think if you take this score out, you would still get,
you still have a fantastic movie, but I feel like it elevates it so much more.
It really feels like the embodiment of what you're watching on screen. And those are some of my favorite scores in movies, where it does complement the movie and obviously elevates it, but it translates it in a world in its own, you know? Like I said, when you listen to some of these songs, you feel the emotions that even you get while you're watching on screen, you know, and it hits hard. It's amazing. Towards the end of that date kind of sequence, we get kind of another turn, which really, again, I was not expecting. Again, the first half, I was like, this could be the whole movie and I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Then this pivot happens. Obviously, towards the end of the date, she's basically saying like she wanted to be on this date. She's crying, this and this. She's messaging Taki about like, don't mess this up or whatever. And then towards the end of the day, Miss Okudera notices Taki's different. And she kind of mentions like, you probably like someone else right now, you know?
Gosh. Yeah.
Which...
it hurts to watch.
It hurts, but yeah.
Gosh, my heart was beating so fast, man.
It very, very much so spins it on its head. Mitsuha is texting him, and she's like, if you look in the sky, you could probably see the comet right now. He looks up, and he doesn't know what she's talking about. And then it shows from her perspective. Basically everything building up to that moment. And it shows her obviously at the festival or whatever. It shows the comet split and goes, you just see it kind of in her viewpoint, her eye. And then it just totally stops. And then it cuts right back to Taki. And like I said, he can't see the comet. So it's just like, what's happening, you know? And in my head, I was just like, I didn't get it. Like, I was like, wait, what's going on, you know? And at that point, they kind of stop switching. The switching ends up not happening anymore. And you start to realize Taki goes on this whole journey to find this place he'd been dreaming about, like feels so vivid, so real, but he doesn't have much to go off of. Because obviously these live switching moments play out as dreams, you know? And obviously we all know when you're dreaming, you wake up, it's hard to recollect a lot of details. And you see things on his phone start to like disappear, things like that. And he's just like, it doesn't make sense. Then we find out Mitsuha was, the whole time he was living in her body, it was in the past. And turns out that comet split off and ended up destroying the city. At that moment, I was like, wait, what? I was like, this felt like a like you said, like a slice of life kind of just teen drama, you know, not happy movie, but, you know, just kind of like, oh, they're teenagers. You
it's
know?
A drama, yeah.
It's a drama. This is about them and their challenges. Then out of nowhere, this comet splits off and kills everyone. And you find out that Mitsuha ended up dying. And I was like, what the fuck? I remember being sad and like, wait, and it doesn't feel jarring. Like it's not like, whoa, this shifts into like a totally different movie. No, it blends together well. And it feels very seamless. It is surprising, but the tonal shift to me wasn't that jarring.
It didn't feel forced or anything.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have to have this really dark moment in here. Like, no, it feels kind of essential to what you're watching.
Yeah. And they played up well. Like, again, the reveal, like Taki going through this town, just trying to find this place, and his friends are helping him. And just the slow reveal of like, nope, this is not how you're thinking it was. Really took me off guard and just elevated the movie as a whole. Again, the movie didn't need to go in this direction, but it really, really works. And it works really, really well. Again, I thought the whole body switching thing, I was like, oh, that's it. And nope, this turns out there is now this whole kind of basically later half of them trying to fix this, and how are they going to do it? And it is amazing. Wallied, when that switch happened, what was going through your head?
My heart dropped. It was like, it shocked me. I just was like, wait, what? You know, at first I was very confused. I was like, wait, so how does that work then? You know, like with the dreams and everything, or how does the whole body swapping thing work? But I love that the film kind of shows it later on, and it's like, actually, okay, it makes a lot more sense now. But it was a big shock, and I was very confused. I did have a lot of questions for sure.
Yeah. Then this last half kind of gets into this basically save the town storyline,
which was surprising. I really loved that the film took that approach, you know?
Yeah. And you get a lot of great moments. Obviously, Taki is able to get one last try. He goes to this shrine basically that had this tradition that Mitsuha participates
with the sake, or there's like spit out.
Yeah. And he's able to use that basically for one last kind of try at this. And I love that after he does that, him being back in her body was such a like great reveal, obviously, of like, whoa, like what the heck? It pulled off, it worked. But the reveal of Mitsuha's backstory, the animation switch at that moment plays out in such a great way. For those of you who have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It just goes through like this whole backstory line between her and her mom, her and her dad, and basically in a short 5-minute span, you get this whole other backstory that you weren't really expecting. And it's conveyed in such a small and great way that when you're back to the main characters, you feel the emotional motivations behind everything as well. I love that it wasn't enough just for him. Mitsuha also has to have her hands in playing in saving the city, you know?
Yeah.
That was just such a great, like, no, it takes the both of them. It's not just one person.
They're working as like a team and everything.
Exactly. I don't take that for granted because I would not really enjoy it as much if obviously Taki goes back and he just fixes everything by himself.
Yeah, that's not fair. Come on.
Yeah. But it was great.
I love the line too, seeing as you mentioned the shrine. I love when the grandma at the beginning, she says, even if worlds are lost, traditions should be handed down. Mm-hmm. That's the most important task we at Miyamuzu Shrine have. Mm-hmm. You know, I love that a lot. And I love that the shrine plays a big part into saving the town and everything. Yeah. And just them working together, you know.
And there's a foreshadowing a little bit as well. Obviously, the grandma slowly starts to realize what's been going on with Mitsuha. And she remembers that at a time, this same thing had occurred to her too. But she had forgotten who that person was. And really sad. But it really does kind of foreshadow what we see later on.
Yeah. And I guess I can also see it as like it's generational trauma, maybe. And I can maybe also see it as like you pass these things down to your kids, you know, that, you know, you can't control. It's a kind of depressing thought, but it is very interesting how the film portrays it and everything.
Yeah. And there are so many great moments in this last half when they meet on the mountain for the first time and they meet at this twilight magic hour, basically.
I was screaming at my screen.
The music that plays in this part is so great. It is a little bit hidden behind the vocals. So if you're listening to the soundtrack, just listen to it on its own. This piano theme is absolutely amazing. It's great. It's a great moment. They get this brief moment at sunset where they're finally able to talk to each other. And they're given this moment of like euphoria pretty much of like finally like this is us, you know, and it's playing out and it's so great. And they're like, we need to do this. We need to make sure that we get this done. You know, we can't let anyone get hurt, things like that. And it's crazy to think that this is the first time they're meeting on screen, yet it feels really natural. And so much was done in these body switches. It's such a very unique way to do like a love story.
I think what works also for that is that you've had equal time with each character on their own, you know. Definitely. So it definitely makes it a lot more satisfying when they do finally meet together.
And then the abrupt switch, I swear when I first saw this, I was like, wait, what? They're like, let's write each other's names down so we don't forget who we are. And then out of nowhere, Mitsuha just disappears. And Taki's just like looking around. You realize the sunset, that twilight hour is kind of over.
I like that the music cuts abruptly too. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
And he starts to forget. He can't remember why he was there.
And he's all, I'll remember. I'm like, bro, write it down.
And I love the switch of Taki's part in this final act is kind of done. You know, he was the setup before that moment, and now it's switched back over. So now Mitsuha is left to evacuate the city with friends, go and try to convince her dad, you know, to help her, and watching that whole last half play out is absolutely amazing. One of the mentions, when I first saw this movie, the emotion really didn't hit me too hard, but the second time I saw it, I totally forgot about this moment. And the second time I saw it, I remember I started crying, and I was like, I've seen this before. Why am I crying on the second time? Mitsuha is basically racing towards the city, trying to fix everything. She basically is on the last leg of this thing, and there's a small moment. This music starts playing. You hear the band singing and everything, and it's just absolutely great. And she has this moment where she falls on the ground, and she's like, I can't remember. She's starting to forget who this person was, but she remembers, he's like, let's write our names on each other's hands so we remember who we are. And there's this great reveal of her looking at her hand to know what Taki had wrote, and you just see the brief message, and it just says, "I love you," and that's it. And the moment I saw that for the second time, I remember I just started crying, and I was like, holy crap. That emotion just swept me off my feet, and I was like, that is absolutely tragic if that was the last thing. He didn't write his name, but he wrote that message, just said so much. And then it's one of the best ways I've seen that message conveyed of I love you, and it's said at such a pivotal moment that your time was brief and you didn't have as much as you wanted to say as you could have. But that was your final message to this person. It was absolutely amazing. And every time I see it, I can feel the emotions, and I'm like, nope, I don't want to start crying. This is one of the moments, guys, if you're watching with your friends, if for some hypothetical reason, if I was watching it with you and we were in a living room or whatever, and we're all sitting there and we're quiet, this is a moment where you would hear out of me, you would hear me go, and that would be me trying to hold down the emotion, and that would be me trying to bury it so that way no one else knows that I'm crying. Such a great moment. It's, again, the build up to it is absolutely amazing. And there's a lot of moments like that in this kind of climactic sequence, but I remember just seeing that for the second time, and it just totally blew my mind. I was like, that's great. That's a great reveal. And again, this whole later half just plays out in this larger than life, crazy, we got to do everything we can, and it pulls out all the stops, pulls out everything. They're rigging explosives. There's explosions there.
And that's cool too, because so cool. Because he was like, oh, he's got to do the explosions for the weekend or whatever. Yeah, I'm like, that's an awesome foreshadowing thing. I'm like, I'm glad they actually did explosions and everything.
It's so cool, and it plays out like some of those obviously traditional movies of, it feels like a blockbuster kind of movie, but it's small in the emotions and everything. Yeah. Very personal, but it has those bigger than life moments, and the blend of everything, by the end of it, you're just like, wow, this is absolutely great. And past that point, we get into the end. It's amazing. They do kind of like a time jump, and again,
I was not
still surprising me. This time jump happens, and it's been 5 years or whatever, and I was like, wait, what? And just this, you don't know how it's gonna end, and there's so many moments where you're thinking fuck, is this gonna end right here? Taki, Mitsuha, they don't remember what happened, and everything. They don't know. They recall this whole kind of moment, but they don't know who it was about. They can't remember each other, and there's moments where Taki's there and he sees Mitsuha's friends. They had lived. They basically saved the whole town, but he just doesn't remember who they are.
That I did not even notice until watching it recently. I was like, wait, they're right there.
Yeah. And then there's another kind of fake out. Mitsuha and Taki just totally walk by each other. That is such a heartbreaking moment where they just walk by each other. And they kind of do like that over the shoulder glance of like, do I know this person?
Should I look back?
Should I look back? And then they just ignore it and they keep walking. I was like,
No.
I remember like being like, is this how this movie's gonna end? I was like so pissed off.
Oh man!
Again, like emotions, you're not thinking you're gonna feel like this movie made me feel sad, happy, pissed off. Like I was legitimately pissed off in this last 10 minutes, and I was just like, if you fuckers end it this way, I will lose it. And again, like you're rooting for their relationship, you're rooting for them to notice each other, and I've not felt that in like a romance movie to that extent, to where I was like, no, it's not that I'm just going to be sad that they're not together. I will be legitimately mad if they don't end up together. Wallied, this whole last part, obviously it's going left, it's going right.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking throughout this whole thing, you know?
I'm literally screaming at my screen. I'm like, please look back at each other. But I was very curious. I was like, I wasn't really sure how it was going to end. I mean, even rewatching it now, I was still like, what's going to happen? You know, like, did they actually forget, or are they just going to like move on like that? Cause I see the time jump as like, it's like, you know, like how people in your life, they like come and go, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of like, are they going to do that? Or are they just like, maybe just going to glance at each other and that's it? But when they actually did look at each other and they remember each other, oh my God, I almost cried. I had like the biggest smile on my face.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I felt like a sense of relief for sure. And it was just like a nice bow tie to everything you just watched.
Yeah.
And
that last line,
it's shocking, you know, like everything with this movie.
That last line is just great. The way it plays out, they see each other on this train, and they kind of go run to like meet each other. And just for me, the iconic moment of them standing opposite on these steps, and they see each other, but then the nerves kind of take over of like, what do I say? And then they just walk past each other again. And I was just like, all right, like,
okay,
just come on. Then the last line, like, do we know each other? Yes. I was thinking we might. And I was wondering if I could know your name. Such a great way to end the movie.
Great title drop, by the way.
Yeah. It happens a few other times in the movie, but that was just great.
Usually I'm not big on title drops in movies, but that one worked 100%.
That one was great. This whole movie is just a roller coaster. It's so many different things. It's a love story. It has blockbuster, larger than life elements, has this supernatural kind of spin on it of switching lives, has a lot of great emotional teen drama too. Obviously, I didn't mention it too much, but the feelings of someone like Mitsuha from a small town, she wants to just move to like a big city. She wants to go out and try to achieve her dreams and everything. And the spin on that of someone like Taki, who kind of takes that stuff for granted. You know, there's a lot of great subplots and everything. And then obviously the idea of someone like Mitsuha being super young, but obviously tied into her heritage and everything, traditions, great blend of everything. And again, just this movie works on multiple levels of storytelling, directing, music, acting, animation, and it just all comes together in a great way. And at the moments when everything's hitting, the emotions, the music, the visuals, those are the moments where you're just like in awe and you just can't really put words to it. And that's such a big thing for me with movies, is like when it even surpasses my expectation. Not saying like I'm super intelligent and there's no way to really trip me. That's not what I'm saying. But but those moments where it's just like it surprises you and everything just kind of comes to a fold, comes together, and really just blows your mind of like, we're working on this on multiple levels right now.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I love it when movies tie together in that way. Yeah, it's great. It's an absolutely amazing movie. I recommend this movie to so many people every time like they're like, I don't like anime or whatever. I literally tell them I was there too. I was at that point where I was in my teens and I just hated anime. I was like, I don't like it. Like, to me, the animation's weird. It just feels weird. I don't get the humor, things like that. I don't get the weird styles that they do. I was at that point. Movies like this, Studio Ghibli movies, obviously some shorter run animes and things, I feel like can help pull you out of that. That's why I just recommend this movie to anyone. Like, I don't even ask them if they like anime. I'm like, if you watch this movie and it doesn't change your mind, then yes, okay, go ahead and say you don't like anime. That's fine. But to say you don't like anime based off some small scene you've watched of Dragon Ball or whatever, I don't know. You need to watch things like this. This is a movie that I just feel works on every level, and I feel like you could show this to pretty much anyone, and they would start to get invested, you know, which is a big statement. It's a big statement to say that, where your movie and story breaks the medium in which it's told. You know, it translates to any person. It translates to any person at any age. Obviously, kids probably wouldn't really care what's going on.
Sure. Yeah.
But you know, who hasn't felt what you're seeing on screen in this movie? Who hasn't felt these emotions? Every one of us has felt like this, you know. Everyone has felt these feelings towards another person. So yeah, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's one of my favorite animated movies. And I'm so glad I went to go see it in theaters. So glad.
Lucky you.
I remember after I saw it, the wait for this movie to get put on Blu-ray was definitely over a year. And I just remember how bad I wanted to see this movie again. And the wait for me to actually purchase it was such a long time. It felt like a long time. Obviously now things get adapted pretty fast and you get the Blu-ray out right away. But this was still kind of in an earlier time, guys, where anime and stuff wasn't super accessible the way it is now. Obviously, some of these studios and stuff, they buy streaming rights for the animes and things like that. It wasn't like that back, you know, when this movie came out. This movie did kind of help bridge those gaps for distribution studios in America, you know, and to get things put in a physical medium maybe a little bit faster. This movie did kind of take a while after I'd seen it in theaters. And I just remember when I saw it in store, it was like, I'm buying this, I'm going home, I'm watching this again. But yeah, Wallied, final thoughts in this movie. Obviously you've seen it twice now, 3 times actually.
Yeah.
How are you feeling with this movie? Does it get better? Like you mentioned on rewatch, do you recommend for people to watch it more than once? Like, what's overall your opinion?
I don't know. This is a one of a kind film for sure. I feel like it's rare that you find a movie like this often, you know, that blends a lot of different characters really well, that blends a lot of different concepts really well, that don't feel like muddled or forced or anything like that. And it's just a fantastic ride from start to finish. I would even say that I don't think watching it one time is enough. I think you actually got to see it a second or third time to really fully understand everything that you're watching, because it is in a great way. It is such an overwhelming experience, and there's so much layers to the storytelling and everything that you're watching, and even just to like the characters. You know, there's so many things I even picked up on this most recent viewing that I'm like, how did I miss that? You know, how did I not even notice that? You know, and that's I feel like is a great sign of like a fantastic movie. Is something that I can go back and rewatch and get a new perspective on, and find new things to appreciate and notice second, third, or even fifth time around. I highly recommend this to anybody, even if you're not into anime. It is just such an incredible ride. It's one of my favorite romance stories that doesn't even feel like a romance film. It's one of my favorite, I think it might even be my favorite body swap film I think ever made. If I'm being honest, sorry, Freaky Friday, but yeah, this is just incredible in every single way. And the animation is like, it shocks me. I'm like, I don't know how you animate something like this. Like all of his movies are like that. And I'm like, how do you even come up with some of these like drawings and everything? And again, the story is just fantastic. It's just firing on all cylinders and everything. And the music is just like, wow. Like I've never, like, you know, obviously a lot of my favorite movies, they use music in such a purposeful and they utilize it in such an incredible way. But I feel like this film just like elevates it to another level that you're not expecting, you know? And it's like, I feel like the film doesn't take that score for granted. It uses it in the best way possible, in my opinion. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And the fact that it's under 2 hours and it can get all of these things across is insane to me. And it works and it doesn't feel like too much, you know? It's fantastic. I really love this movie a lot. Yeah, it's a film that just gets better and better every time I just rewatch it. And I feel like I'll love it even more when I do rewatch it again.
This definitely put Makoto Shinkai obviously on the map for me. Now he's just someone that he's in that realm now where if he's making a movie, I stop what I'm doing and I go watch it. It happens to me with a few directors to where it's like, no matter what, from this point moving forward, whatever they come out with, I have to go see.
Oh, definitely.
And it's gotten to the point where now I listen to Rad Wimps, the composers for this film. I listen to their music very regularly. There's just so many things to love about this movie. And again, it breaks the boundaries, it breaks the mediums, and it jumps out at you. Those are my favorite movies that just take you, and no matter who you are and what you're feeling, it conveys everything you need to know in its runtime. At no point while I'm watching this do I feel like I need to analyze something else behind the scenes or how it was made. No, everything speaks through the medium of film, and it justifies its existence in the hour and 45 minutes. It doesn't need people like me to tell you to go watch it. It doesn't need reviewers to give it a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for you to go watch it. This movie stands on its own in the best possible way. And you can't really say that about every movie. So if you haven't seen it by now, please go check it out. If you can't guess by now, this movie is a 10 out of 10 for me. And if not, it would be a 12, 15, 20 out of 10. I've watched it so many times now, and every time I watch it, I just appreciate so much that I get to exist when this movie came out.
Yeah, I feel grateful to live in the timeline where I can watch this movie.
And I think whatever force that drove me to go and see this, because again, this was something that at the time I wasn't super into. I'll say that a lot on this podcast, but my favorite movies have that effect on me to where almost before watching it, I didn't really care. And I think those are the marks of a good movie, to where if you're not super into the portrayal and everything, but the movie can, again, convince you to like something that you maybe not like in the first place, is great. It's absolutely amazing. Score-wise, Wallied, where are we at?
So at first I had it at a 9 out of 10 just because of like that opening intro song. Because I was like, I felt like it could have worked a little bit better in the ending. But I'm like, honestly, rewatching it, I'm like, this actually works. There's actually kind of like, it actually gives you a bit of like a foreshadowing idea of like what you're in for and everything. Yeah. And I actually really loved the song too also. So it wasn't a big complaint for me or anything. But rewatching it now, and the fact that I'm still picking up on things and I'm still finding new things to love and appreciate about it, especially on a third viewing, yeah, it's a 10. It's like a perfect 10 out of 10 movie. I would probably say this is easily my favorite of his so far. It's the one that I feel like connects with me the most. Granted, I like a lot of his movies, but I feel like this one hits on such an emotional, personal level for me, where I feel like everything just works and everything feels essential to what you're watching. And the fact that you get so invested quickly and it goes by like so fast is like a feat in and of itself. And for that and just all the other reasons we talked about, it's just absolutely incredible. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry guys. it's a 10. It is a 10 for me. I know I feel like I've been giving him out a lot, but this movie is just like absolutely incredible. Like it works in every way. And I'm shocked that it's like even better than I remember it being. But yeah, it's a 10.
Nice. So please go and see it if you haven't seen it. Make time for it. Convince other people, to watch this movie. Brainwash them if you have to. Kidnap them and get one of those saw contraptions that forces their eyes to be open and let them enjoy one of the greatest movies of our time. Yeah, this is for me just again a modern masterpiece. It was definitely one of my favorite movies of the 2010s. And I know I said this. This probably is in my top 10 films of all time.
Nice.
That's just how much I enjoy it. That's how much I love it. Obviously, later on down the road, I could see other films that maybe will push it out. Who knows? Who knows what films are in store for me? But for a long period of time, it's been 10 years now, this movie has just been stuck in my mind, and it's just lived up to its potential on every time I've viewed it, every rewatch. So please check it out if you haven't seen it.
Definitely. Please.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. So thank you guys for indulging me on this whole, I call them fanboy episodes. Literally, it's just me geeking over one of my favorite movies. I apologize that I do that, but it's just my love of movies. I just don't know how to explain it. I have to put the thoughts I have into words and everything as a form of self-therapy, to feel better that I talked about it. But Wallied, what do we got for next time?
Yeah, this was hard because there's a lot of movies that I want to recommend. So many great movies, honestly. It's so hard a lot of the time. But I think it would be kind of fun to talk about a film that I don't know. I really love this movie a lot. It's a DreamWorks film for sure. It's hard because there's so many of their films I want to talk about.
There is.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like all of them are worthy of discussion, even the terrible ones. But we're not going to do a terrible one. Don't worry. I was thinking we could do Kung Fu Panda next episode.
Ooh, nice.
I love this movie very, very much. It's one of my favorites. It's a childhood favorite. It's one of my childhood favorites, but it's a film that as I've gotten older and older, I've learned to love and appreciate even more. And I feel like it's a film worthy of discussion. I feel like.
Nice. This was kind of a pop culture moment for movies. I remember when this movie came out, I remember just being in theaters for the longest time. Obviously now things jump to streaming and stuff, but I remember when this came out, like it stayed in theaters for such a long time. This is obviously DreamWorks has their greats, they have their misses. But yeah, this is in that realm of DreamWorks at its best,
Definitely.
So this is exciting.
If you guys don't want to be spoiled for it, check it out. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm be shocked if you haven't. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. It's one that you don't expect, especially with a title like that. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking for next episode.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, that'll bring us to a close. Thank you for joining us. If you want to leave us comments, things like that, please feel free to do so.
Yeah.
We're gonna be recommending films and music and stuff for the next couple months, and yeah, we're just gonna see where it goes. So thank you guys.
Thanks. Good day and good night, mates.
See you on the next one.